Yo, what up, what up, what up, though? Welcome
funny.
back to another, I didn't want to say another episode, but like we in a new season.
Hey,
It's
we're
a
in
new season.
We're in a new year.
It's a new day. Fresh anointing
2024.
coming my way.
You know what? You're so churchy.
Aye. I really am. I really am.
You are.
It is a new season. It really is a new season.
It's a new
In more ways than one.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a new season in more ways than one. Like, this is a new season. This kind of about the topic we talking about too, about like finding unity within. And it's partly about like, also, I think it's really good to like reflect on like where we want to go going forward too. Like, you know, we kind of deep into February, almost into March, and
Wow.
people done kind of, you know, most of us done fell off our kind of goals and vision board lists, and we're trying to figure out like how to like get our bearings, and it almost feel like the year is already a lot. I mean, given you think about everything that's going on politically and socially, you know, in the world right now in this present moment, you know, a lot of people are holding a lot, and then they're trying to become a lot, and you know, life is very tough and very full for people, and then some people, you know, like everything going well, and yet everybody, you know, trying to figure out like, you know, how to make this year count, you know, make this year count.
I think it depends on the individual, like you're saying. So
100.
different generations, right? You and I are different generations.
Facts.
So
Where you at? Where you at?
I'm up there. That's all I tell you.
Not where you at, like generation wise. Come here. Did you really think I was at the live tell you, ask you your age and your generation? No, I mean like where you
it's
at?
cool,
like where you at? Finding you like where you at? Like I mean metaphorically
I'm in a
speaking.
very, very good space.
Nice.
Right. So just take one day at a time.
Facts.
One step at a time. Put one foot in front of the other. That's all you can do, right? For the most part. So, and that's just the way that I approach life.
Yeah.
I know life be lifing and all that good stuff, and it does. But then, how do we look at it? And I have to look at it from my own perspective. So, you know what's going on, and you just, I don't even know if it's dealing with it, or you just embrace. That's a better word for me. Just embrace where you are, because one thing we do know is seasons last momentarily. Summer is not going to be summer for a whole year. It may feel like it in Georgia. However, we realize that summer is going to start somewhere in July, and it'll probably end, August, September-ish. And then the autumn and fall comes in. That only lasts for a while.
Yes.
And then there's the winter, and then there's the spring, right? So it's just like life.
It is.
Yep.
It is. Most mornings when I wake up, I am working out or running or whatever. Or sometimes, you know, if it's like a weekend on a Sunday and it's not a day where I run and the weather's nice and the sun is out or whatnot, I'll get my coffee and I go sit on the back of my truck, and in the front of my yard, there's a tree where the tree, at this moment, the last time I sat out there, the tree has no leaves on it. You know, pretty much it's in this kind of dead quote unquote dead season right now. And at one point, you know, when the leaves were changing and falling, you could see the kind of remnants of life on the ground, the memory of what it used to be, what it used to contain, what it used to have, what it used to look like. And now those leaves will become compost for the earth, where in their place another thing will grow, where the leaves were once vibrant, they were once beautiful, and now they're on the ground and they're becoming seed and soil for something else to take its place. And I was just looking at that tree the other day. And as I was looking at the tree the other day, you're saying seasons change. Say it again, seasons last momentarily.
They're momentarily.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, looking at the tree, where in that Job text in Job 14, you know, indeed there is still hope for a tree. That if its, you know, roots don't dry out, I'm paraphrasing all that, and its seeds, buds or whatnot, and things like that, that at the scent of water, it will bud like a young plant. And I thought about this because in that particular text, you know, there's so much going on in Job's life at that moment. It's like calamity after calamity after calamity after calamity after calamity. It's as if that wasn't, you know, enough. You know, he had friends. You know, I'm preaching about this at Sharp's Church, at Fellowship.
Oh, yeah.
As if that wasn't enough. You know, he had friends in his season, his dry season, who tried to interpret like what life was like for this. Well, your leaves fell because you didn't have enough water. Your leaves fell because it wasn't the right timing. It wasn't your season. Things happen in your life. Say, he was doing all this bigger than complaining. Da, 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 da. And at 14, Job takes the mic and he begins to talk about his own, reality. And I think like if we are to like think about like unity within, we should go look at some trees. Like we should go and look, like you said, about the seasons. Like these trees, they only have the appearance of death.
Because they're not dead.
They're not dead.
Right. And the leaves should shed and fall off. Right. We think about ourselves. We shed hair every single day. Every day. Right. You comb your hair, you brush your hair, you're going to shed hair. You wake up, you may not see some, but you're going to shed hair. Like even when our nails are growing, right, and eventually they're going to break or whatever. But I think oftentimes, we think that wholeness means we got to hold on to everything we've always had.
Whoa. Say it again.
I don't even know what I say.
Wholeness is like we got to hold on to what?
Everything that we've always had. Like we don't ever want to be in a barren season, right? When we think about unity, oftentimes it does mean oneness, like being in community. But how effective or how good are we in unity in community if we're not connected with ourselves first, right? So making the choice to take care of you. And I'm not just saying, I know self-care is this big buzzword that is great. What about the soul care? Pastor Goodman talked about that a couple of years ago. I really wish he would come and talk about that with us, dude. Because what about taking care of your soul, right? What about taking care of your mind, your body, and your spirit? All of those different things so that we can show up and be present. Not just show up and just be in attendance, but show up and be present for those that we are in unity with in any relationships, right? But I think too oftentimes we want things to always be what they always have been. We don't want change. Some people don't like change, right? Some people don't like that the leaves come off the tree. And they think that because the tree is barren right now, or it's bare, that it's dead. And it's not, right? It is yet alive. It is doing exactly what a tree is supposed to do for that particular season.
Winston, I think his name is, I don't want to butcher his name. I think he's jazz musician, Brother Winston. I can see his face right now. I was listening to a video, and he was a younger kid at this time, young jazz musician. And he said something about practice that I absolutely love. He said that, like, yo, I always, it don't matter if I work, 10 to 1 or, to 6, I always just try and find a little bit of time to practice, because the more I do it, the more I end up loving it. And I think a lot of people right now struggle with the practice of caring for our souls because we haven't done it enough to actually begin to love it. It's been hard. We've tried it. We've been promised that it will work almost like a magic bullet. Henry Nouwen, the Catholic monk, warned against this in his book. If y'all haven't read it, like this is a book to read I read this book every single year. It's called Reaching Out. The 3 movements of the spiritual life. I absolutely love from loneliness to it's dealing with loneliness, dealing with prayer, and dealing with community and hospitality. And one of the early chapters, he says that many of us we're kind of addicted to this danger of the final solution. That if I could just if I just show up and pray today, then everything could be better. Or if I could just show up and read my Bible today, then finally everything will be better. Realizing that, like, the life, to find unity within is not a one-time thing, but it's an everyday practice.
But we've gotten away from the disciplines, right, of what that looks like. Because, we can talk a good game and say, well, people don't spend time taking care of themselves, reading, praying, and things of that nature. But let's kind of go back. When did that stop, right? When did, somewhere along the line, like Big Mama used to teach us how to pray. Big Mama taught us that we need to read our Bibles, right? We need to, and it's not just coming to church, because your soul salvation is just between you and the Lord, right? But your development, your spiritual growth is you have to take initiative. So somewhere along the line, we have stopped communicating the importance of discipline as it relates to the unity within. And what does that look like, right? So spending time with God in his word, spending time with God in prayer, spending time in meditation, then spending time with others in unity, right? Talking about your experiences. You know, what is I love when I've had this great morning devotion, or whatever time I've done my devotion, and I'm talking to someone, and how the Lord has just blessed me in that devotion. And I'm excited to share. Oh my gosh, I had this great devotion this morning. The Lord was speaking to me in this way. And it's interesting. And I love when people say, how did you get there? Right? Because we show up at church, which is great. We want them to come into community. But then after Pastor Goodman preaches, or wherever they are worshiping at, after the preacher has preached the word, do we go back and read that for our own self, for our own self to be developed? Do we spend time meditating on what did the word say to me? How did it speak to me, right? What things should I be pruning, or what leaves should I be shedding at this particular moment? Because what we realize about the unity within, we have to do that work. Self-help books are great. They are absolutely great. However,
facts.
There's nothing greater than God's word.
Oh,
right. There's nothing greater than his word. And all the self-help we need is in the book, right? The Bible. And the Bible teaches us about unity inside, right? And then we're able to be in unity with others and not be offended when we don't agree.
That's real.
Right.
That's real. That's real. Because I understand that, like, a lot of people may feel a certain type of way about the Bible, that, like, that would, I'm at least assuming that there's somebody listening who said, you know, in this season, based on, like, what I went through as a youngin', you know, I was in church and left church, and, you know, prayer is hard and all these things is hard. Reading the Bible is, you know, I dig the Bible, you know, but I just ain't there this season to really get, you know, I was actually talking to a friend about this.
Okay.
Where a friend lamented, like, you know, in this season, you know, this person's Christian. So a friend lamented that, you know, the whole idea of, you know, God being present and there, you know, just doesn't do what he needs in this season for him. And I would be interested.
What happened? Right. And I'm not asking you, I'm just saying, like, when I think about, because when we think about unity, we think about oneness, right? When we think about coming to church, that's a sense of community, or that is community, and we should be in unity. We have friends and people that we consider our church family, right? So when I hear a believer, you said he was a Christian,
100%,
that feels like right now, this is what I heard you say,
100,
that the Bible ain't doing it for him. Cool, right? So what happened? Did he experience what some people say, because it's two different things, some type of hurt from the church, somebody in the church, or spiritual abuse, right? So what happened for him to feel at this moment, and I think we're getting off of unity, that doesn't work for him, right? Because, I mean, if the truth be told, many blacks, the majority of blacks, have experienced something
100%.
where we've been oppressed. So when people are talking to us about them going through things, we understand.
Facts.
Of all races, black people, even if we haven't been through it, we saw our other ancestors go through this, and we can feel that, right? So when we go back to our grandparents and our great-grandparents and how they were sprayed with the water hose, had to endure a lot of things that we just don't have to. And they went to the Bible, even if they couldn't read, remembering scripture helped them out. Hymns helped them out, right? So even for myself and my middle-aged self, right? To get me out, it's the relationship that I have with God. And let me just say this, and I don't want to get in trouble by saying this. So if the God in the Bible is the only God that we know, hear me well, then does that make the Bible itself our God? Or do we know the God of experience?
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Because even for myself, I'm always thinking of making sure that Boatwright is a whole, well woman.
That's good.
I need to be. So I'm in unity with myself, but I haven't always been. I had to make that that choice, that decision that I wanted to be whole, right? So I had to do some therapy.
Yeah.
But then I also really and truly had to be brutally honest with myself. And I'm going to be honest with you, there were times that I wasn't spending the time in the Word like I should have been. I was relying on what I got on a Sunday probably, or what I had put into my Christian savings account at that moment. And I was living off of that. But we all know that if you don't put money into your checking account or your savings account, you go to the ATM machine and try to get something out. It says, well, insufficient funds. It's the same thing with our spirit man. If we're not putting anything out, I'm being very mindful of what I say.
No, it's fine.
It can be
This
easy.
is like Let's Talk Fam.
Okay, it can be
this
easy.
This is the space to talk about it.
For us to say God ain't doing it for us right now, or the Bible ain't doing it for us. But we can pick up another book, or we can go on another podcast and we can listen to it, and we get what we need. I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm not saying it's wrong. But as believers, God is our source, right? And to be in unity with ourselves, it comes from Him. It's seeking, because we were made in His image. So what does that mean, Stu? You look something like my Father. I look something like our Father, right? So we look different, but if we're made in His image, we get emotions from Him. Amen, lights, right? We don't want to talk about it, but he has some because He gave them to us, right? We got His features. We got His characteristics. So like Pastor Goodman always says, if you want to know how to fix the problem, go back to the Creator. If we want to know how to have unity within ourselves, because He created us, who better to go to? I can read your books, Stu, and it's good. It's good. However, I still need to go back to my Creator when I'm feeling down, when I feel alone, right? When I'm unsure about myself, when life be lifing, right? When people are getting on my everlasting nerves. But some of this still goes back to me.
I get it.
I'm talking more than I normally talk, but hey.
Which is good. I get it. And that's the thing. I think for so many people we have, like for me, I'm always just thinking about the person who may like hear something and like they're wondering like, does anybody care about the situation I'm in? You know, I hear all this talk about, finding your unity within and things like that. But, I'm just feeling depleted. And I think we got to take that into account as well, is that like so many people are like just spiritually depleted right now because of what they have to
Let's just talk
hold.
about that then, young buck. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, I think so many people are depleted right now. They've tried so much and they just, I think we're in a very spiritually vulnerable place right now, collectively, both inside of the church and beyond the church. I think we're in a spiritually vulnerable place, not only because of kind of what the pandemic did to us and what it took away from us and, the things that we had to go through, the psychological reality that we had to endure, and even, some people, the isolation was much more than just a few weeks or a few days. It was years and months, and maybe they're just trying to get back to it again. And I also think that like we got to be real, like we have also so much like misinformation and disinformation going around right now, where there's like a sustained campaign where there's just like somebody called it the podcast industrial complex, and here we are, talking on mics, but the whole idea of the podcast industrial complex, where people can have can have the words but never did the work, can have the voice but never had the vision, can get on the mic, but ain't really research. And so people are in a spiritually vulnerable place because we're longing for many things. We're longing for answers. We're longing for coherence, internally and externally. We're longing for a better reality for our friends and for our children. We're longing to feel better, to feel like legitimately, to feel if the joy of the Lord is one's strength, then the absence of the Lord is one's weakness. Then in some senses, like the joy of the Lord is your strength, it's the thing that keeps you, here. Then I guess it's like in some sense the opposite is like the absence of that feeling or that reality, becomes one sense of like weakness, and one feels weak because, we just so much is taken away.
Do you feel it's generational?
Possibly because it's possible because like when I think about my generation and beyond, we because someone asked me about this when it came to like my grandmother. My grandmother's 90 years old, and thinking about like race and justice and black people, like it's things better now than it were. And I don't think I think it's yes and both and that things are worse in some sense than they were, but they're not. They're not because you're not going through what they actually went through one to one, but they are because the intensity to which you got to hold multiple things at one time in this moment. And I think as young people, we're very aware of the various things we have to hold in one moment. Whether it's, and we're done with the performance of religion too. We could care less about like,
I don't think y'all ever performed.
Yeah. Could care less about like, we did, many of us did, many of us do. Many of us did, many of us find ourselves kind of still in churches and things like that. But, in our hearts of hearts and in our own kind of secret time and personal time, many of us have more questions than we have answers. We have more fears than we have faith. We have more anxiety than we feel kind of, grounded. And I think one of the things I've been really thinking about right now, and it's part of like when I was doing this event, they asked me to come lecture. And the event was a faith event. It was a Christian event. And they asked me to come lecture. And I asked the director 2 weeks before. I was like, do people preach there? Do people preach? Do they preach on stage? She said, yeah, of course. Like, I would love, for people to preach. I told her I want to preach. Because in my spirit, I was like, people don't need more information. People need, like, that truth that holds you together, thus said the Lord. Here's something that's been said that can pull you through some things. And I think right now we're just in a spiritually vulnerable place. And I think possibly it's generationally because older demographics, have been able to go with the flow in ways that young people have not, because we're exposed to much more. We have to hold much more than my mom, my grandfather, my grandmother.
I think it's just different though. I'll share that.
All right, say more.
I think it's different, and I know, and maybe this is going to be a two-part of this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering if it's just different. Like, I think the exposure part is we got all this social media, all these different things. So, of course, that wasn't even there as I was growing up. And, of course, for my mom, my grandmother, my great-grandmother. But when I'm thinking about generational, our parents, grandparents, and ancestors, they carried up some crosses. Like, they carried some weight, some burdens, and they had no choice but to press. Like, we had no choice but to press. So I think that the loads are different. But I'm going to say pretty much to a certain extent, it's almost as if it's almost even feel. right? Because our parents, grandparents, and they carried some stuff, right? I just think it looks different, and so I think there's gonna be a part 2 to this. Let's be honest,
I think I would like that because I think this gets at what I think a lot of young people are going through and the kind of struggles that intergenerational life together poses. Because many of the questions that young people have, older demographics just, in some sense, they could have escaped the question, and could have. They don't have to deal with, their friends. What happens when your friend is gay? What happens when, your friend is pedophile? Well, they knew.
They knew. They just weren't going to say anything.
I know,
right?
but that's a difference with wrestling with it publicly together. They knew, or say like somebody. That's just one example, right? So it's like they knew, but like they didn't wrestle in the ways that young people had to wrestle today because of the social norms in that day. So they didn't have to ask the same type of questions in which like you cannot escape in this day. And the courageous thing to do is not just know and not speak or not do, is to know and to do and to be caring in your knowing and your doing.
That's good.
Yeah.
I do think as we come to a close, this is a good closing point because it's a good opening point for us to open back up for our next one as well. Because the way that they show unity, or like the unity for one and then to each other, is different in the way that we're doing it right now. However, we can learn from each other, right?
Oh,
so
facts.
I think this is going to be a good part 2.
Oh, 100.
Of this conversation. I got to come ready for you, Stu, because you so philosophical. I'm just plain Jane. Let me go read a couple of books before I come back.
I am definitely not. That's what's crazy. I was at an event, and it's actually a really good end. But kind of like PG said, post movie credits.
Right.
Sunday, I was at an event, and a brother who is from Iraq, Bilal. His name is Bilal. He stood up in the crowd of 300 people. World changes. And there was a person on stage, a scientist on stage, and he made a statement. He said, "Simple is kind. Simple is kind." So I guess it's like even that statement, like simple is kind. Like as we're seeking to have unity in ourselves, we don't gotta like mystify ourselves with all this kind of philosophical knowledge or philosophical truth, or it's good to do that sometimes. I think we need to like work our minds sometimes, though. To pick up the hard book, to pick up the hard documentary. But most times, I think simple is indeed kind. And so, like even as people are trying to pick up the pieces and find unity within,
right, wholeness
with one another,
yes.
What are simple things? The question becomes, the simple thing is the kind thing. If it's simply, checking in on someone, that's kind. Absolutely. If it's simply showing up to church, that's kind. If it's simply praying today or saying thank you, that's kind. So simple is kind.
Simple is kind. That's
simple is kind.
It's
It's good to be back.
It's good to be back.
It's good to be back in the neighborhood. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
It's going to be a great year. Great conversation. So
it will be.
Maybe we'll invite somebody to come and talk to us next time.
PG, we calling you. We calling you, PG. All right, y'all. Y'all take care. Be blessed.